Today's video dedication is for Whiskey Jack. Anim Pakal versus Rakdos. With some, low curve stuff is good to start off with. We are on the draw. Alright, and we managed to get into a red mana with the Prismatic Vista. Was relying on the Talisman for that, but let's try and encourage our opponent to use some removal. Some artifact removal on the Ozolith. I think we're going to be wanting to curve out in this deck, so probably go for the Dusk Legion Duelist. Our opponent not playing any spells yet. A command tower is good, so we've definitely got our colours fixed here. Okay, and seeing a Wasteland onto the command tower, trying to hurt our mana there, and keeping us off a professional Facebreaker. This gives us a chance to get down the Talisman though, so crack this for a red mana, and then out goes the Talisman. Then we'll swing in. We do have Vigilance, so it's just a free 2 damage here. And I'll encourage more artifact removal with the Skull Clamp. We'll be able to equip that next turn and swing in with Anim Pakal in play, so yeah, won't mind losing the Dusk Legion Duelist necessarily. Alright, a Demonic Tutor for our opponent now. Maybe going for a Lightning Bolt for our commander, but we'll encourage him to do it. Okay, drawing into a Siege Veteran. Let's go for the Skull Clamp onto the Duelist. See if our opponent allows it. He does. So now we can drop the land and we'll land our commander. And swing in now for 3 damage, getting the first trigger on our commander. And that's a plus counter, comes in with a gnome token. So maybe a Toxic Deluge. Our opponent went for a board wipe perhaps. Want to be getting down the Siege Veteran next turn really, so that we can sort of avoid board wipes. A Rakdos Signet to help accelerate a little bit of mana, or actually just keep up on mana. Turn 5 now, and we're both at 4. Alright, a Chrome Mox, we can get rid of the Get Lost maybe. This is an excellent new removal spell from the most recent set, well worth including in the white decks. Let's throw out the Siege Veteran here I think. And Siege Veteran can put a plus counter on the commander at the beginning of combat so that we can get even more gnome tokens. And let's just turn in sideways with everything here. I think that's going to be pretty safe. So we get even more gnome tokens. And chances are we're going to draw into another land here, so let's get rid of a gnome to the Skull Clamp while we've got the chance. Managing to land that will allow us to draw 2 cards. Alright, and we do get into a land, so drop the plains. We've got Chrome Mox available to us still, so let's continue to draw cards. Get another gnome token sacrificed. We have Ornithopter of Paradise and Goldspan Dragon now. So let's go for Chrome Mox. And we can't get rid of the Ornithopter here unfortunately because it is an artifact. I think we'll go for the Reckless Fireweaver underneath the Mox. And then let's clamp back onto... Our opponent's probably going to get rid of the commander, so we'll Skull Clamp the commander. It turns out the Ozolith is looking like it's going to be relevant here now that we've got additional plus counters. It's another tutor for our opponent, entombing something into the bin. And it was a Cavern Horde Dragon our opponent went for, Trample, Flying and Haste. So I'm assuming he has a means of reanimating that. We have not held up the Get Lost. And we do control a decent number of artifacts here, so yeah, reanimating on that thing. We'll be able to get down a dragon of our own next turn at least. And managing to hit us allows him to make some treasure tokens. Don't have a sack outlet to get rid of our artifacts in response. Not sure I'd do that anyway. But there are 6 treasure tokens for our opponent. We'll be able to get down Rakdos, Lord of Riots here. And does decide to do that. Followed by another dragon in the Bogarden Hellkite is going to be able to divide up some damage, so it's looking like it's us that needs a board wipe at this point. Alright, getting rid of everything apart from our commander here. A Siege Veteran going to go down because it saw the Dusk Legion Duelist die there. Alright, managing to get into a mountain. So do we just swing straight in with our commander here? Can't get the Goldspan Dragon through anymore. Go through 2 attacks and just turn in sideways with our commander. We'll put a plus counter on itself, so it will be able to kill whatever is blocked here. And deciding to take on the Bogarden Hellkite, a Rakdos Lord of Riots is blocking one of the golems as well, so we get 3 through. Should maybe have swung in with some tokens as well to get some extra damage in. But we'll allow our commander to go down because we are looking for a board wipe with the Skull Clamp here, so commander back into the command zone. The Ozolith will get the counters on it. Draws us into Showdown of the Scalds. as well as an Idol of Oblivion, which could draw us more cards, but Skullclamp's looking better at this point. So play a land, clamp on a tapped creature, and that gets us into Invasion of Golbakan, which I don't think is going to be of much use to us, unfortunately. So clamp, that gets us into a Selfless Spirit, so maybe we just play Ornithopter and the Selfless Spirit to buy ourselves a turn. Or we could chump with the Ornithopter Paradise and then get lost on this. So play the Ornithopter and Skullclamp the Ornithopter. Discard a land, and the Facebreaker is going to be too slow here, I think, so we'll get rid of that. A Dark Ritual with 3 cards in hand, our opponent's at 10 life. Then it's another dragon. Not sure if they're going for the adventure there. Exile the top 2 cards of an opponent's library and you can look at them as long as they remained exiled and play them. Yeah, so they're going for the adventure there. And the dragon itself is 4 mana, flying and trample. When it attacks, create a treasure. Alright, and our opponent had a Toxic Deluge here, so we are going to get the Skullclamp. Might as well allow the draws. Our opponent will be making less treasures here, but maybe he's planned his turn out relying on that. We'll go through to combat and then go for the Get Lost onto the cavern. Okay, but unfortunately this has multiple targets, so our opponent does have a deflecting swat and will be able to move it. Multiple permanent types that it can target, I mean, so it'll just have to go onto the Rakdos. They are going to get 4 treasures here thanks to our artifacts. So the Get Lost will still resolve, they'll still get the map tokens here, and they'll still be able to explore. 5 damage to us from the Cavern Horde Dragon. 0 cards in hand though, so they can make all the mana they want as long as they keep their hand empty. They do have this thing to cast as well, don't forget, as well as the 2 cards they exiled from us previously. So 7 mana available, probably goes for the Rakdos. And that's exactly what they do, swallowing up a lot of their mana, so I think we have to be trying to go wide at this point. Our commander does trigger on any other creature swinging in, I think. Yeah, a non-gnome token, or a non-gnome creature we have to swing in with. So we could get some creatures in, get the Summoning Sickness away, and then get the Anim Pakal down next turn. Although there is a Ginger Brute, which does have haste. Let's get down a dual land. Yeah, Ginger Brute effectively costs 2 if we want it to not be blockable. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Or we could just have it be blocked. Yeah, let's get down the Ginger Brute anyway. Then we're playing our commander. And then maybe just the Selfless Spirit so that we can chump block this thing and keep them from making lots of mana. Although I think their mana issues will be pretty irrelevant at this point. We can always swing in with something like Aurelia or Goldspan Dragon next turn. We don't have to land the hit. We don't have to have the creature survive either. Yeah, so we'll play the Selfless Spirit this turn, I think. Ozolith is going to put the counters back on the Anim Pakal. And then we swing in with the Ginger Brute. Trigger the Anim Pakal again. Is going to put a counter on itself. And come down with 5 golems. Missed out on a couple of damage previously. So they block 1 here, they take 5. Should be down to 2, but they'll be down to 4. Do we want to keep the Ginger Brute? Doesn't really matter as long as we can play a creature next turn. So yeah, we will just go for the Selfless Spirit plan. And it is the Ginger Brute they go after. Going down to 4. So can they do anything to us next turn? Play the Selfless Spirit. They may well try to wipe the board, but that's really in here for chump blocks. Although I'm forgetting this has trample, doesn't it? So yeah, it'll get through the Selfless Spirit's toughness anyway. So they're getting the treasures regardless here. We can at least protect our board from a damnation or a blasphemous act. The Decadent Dragon into play. Still 1 card in hand. Looks like he's casting something else though, so maybe doesn't like the card in his hand. Alright, it is a Lightning Greaves. Playing that from exile. So wanting to swing in with the Decadent Dragon to make a treasure. Might have something big in hand that he wants to hoard treasures with. So yeah, giving that haste. And turning in sideways with everything, so we look to take 10 damage here. Making a treasure with the Decadent. And we will chump block. Noteworthy that an Anim Pakal is not a golem, so it does trigger itself, so we could always do that as well. But Aurelia and a couple of combats next turn sounds good. So might as well give our stuff indestructible before the Rakdos takes out the Selfless Spirit. And then Cavern Horde Dragon, we do have a lot of artifacts, as we usually are going to in this deck. So lots and lots of treasure tokens, and just need to hope that we don't see a Exsanguinate or something like that. Okay, there's a Baird, And yeah, they don't have any buffs on any of their creatures, so they're not going to be able to make a soldier token with that. Playing it from our deck, of course. Can't play Baird in a Rakdos deck. And that's just one chump blocker for them. They've still got one card in hand. Okay, and there's a Fury. So it deals 4 damage divided as you choose. Not enough to take out our commander, unfortunately for them, so they know that we're going wide on them. And just decide to let us do it here, seemingly. Got a Rugged Prairie. So let's go for the Rugged Prairie. We'll play out the Aurelia just for the fun of it. So Aurelia would do it on its own at this point because our opponent decided to tap down his flyers. But we'll get 2 combat tricks here. And Aurelia and Anim will trigger the Anim, so plus counter on Anim. Get an additional combat phase after this thanks to the Aurelia, which means we get additional gnome tokens, but our opponent is going to go down here anyway thanks to going wide. And I do appreciate my opponent playing this out so that we're able to show you such interactions. The Baird chump blocking and a double striker going on there as well. But we know our opponent is out of cards in hand, so let the damage go through. And there we are, our opponent goes down to -10. Yeah, big thank you to my opponent for playing that out. It's a rarity that an opponent will actually play out the game once they think they've lost. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'm not sure that this is going to be a particularly popular commander, but I think it is a good one for 1 versus 1. And I'm a huge fan of token decks anyway. Big thank you to the patrons as well for supporting the channel. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.